Next, sir, we have a presidential memorandum encouraging departments and agencies in your government, including the Department of the Interior, to promote federal recognition of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina.
I love the Lumbee tribe. So this is their first big step, right?
This would be a huge step for them, sir.
Yeah, they were with me all the way. They were great. North Carolina, Lumbee tribe. Okay, you'll send them a copy of that?
Yes, sir.
They were great.
Florida Senator Ashley Moody knows something about enforcing the law. She sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee, was previously the AG of Florida. We're happy she's with us tonight. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Great to be with you, and thanks for calling out the truth.
What happened in this case, Senator, and why are the courts and these prosecutors, and obviously the laws that are passed to allow this type of catch and release to continue, why is this happening still in the United States of America?
You know, great question, and I love how you put it out there that the media is trying to spin this as the MAGA crime message. How about the guarantee of this country? In fact, when we became a country, it was a core function of government to protect the security and safety of its people so that we could protect their rights. And if a city is not doing that, if a state is not doing that, they are failing its citizens. In fact, what this video shows is that the Dems that are trying to hide this and are in charge of these cities, they believe that, I guess, the only people that should be safe are the folks that can drive a car or live behind a gate. I mean, how about people that have to use public transportation, have to live in these communities, in these cities? And I'm just so grateful there are people like you and President Trump and others that are willing to call this out for what it is. It is the result of insane policies. They're hypocritical policies because Florida did it completely different. Everything that, for example, the North Carolina governor currently used to be the AG there. He started a task force and came up with things like decriminalizing crime, letting no cash bail, all of the things that were the opposite of what Governor DeSantis and I pushed in Florida, which was completely different policies, which we called stronger, safer cities. And while the new North Carolina crime is skyrocketing, Florida's is at a 50-year low crime rate. So it is all comes down to policies, and you have to have strong leadership.
Yeah, CNN's Brian Stelter says a certain thing is happening in the aftermath of this Charlotte murder. Watch.
Trump-aligned figures succeeded in making this senseless death a symbol of big city crime. Some of the comments around this story are baldly racist, stoking fear of African Americans because this man attacked a white woman. The open racism on sites like X today, it's eye-popping. But there are also legitimate questions about this so-called career criminal.
This so-called career criminal, again, similar narratives we've seen before. They're trying to turn this into a racial issue, and what people who are actually reporting on it are trying to say is, no, the truth is the truth. It doesn't matter about who's doing what your skin color is. The truth is the truth, and they're either not covering it or trying to frame it as an issue only as it relates to Trump voters. I mean, this woman was a refugee from Ukraine, for goodness sakes. She came here for a respite. And for, I would imagine, protection, and the rule of law matters here.
And it breaks my heart that type of charge, wouldn't the opposite be true if you had leaders that wanted to ignore going in and protecting citizens and doing everything they could to bring a crime rate down and making people feel safe just because they might be of a particular race or majority minority? I mean, we are Americans, and this country and leaders should stand up first and foremost to dedicating resources and brain power and strategy to make communities safe. I mean, some of these sanctuary cities have evolved even more so into sanctuaries for criminals. I mean, Pritzker released what he called a safety act, which police came out and prosecutors came out and were like, you cannot do this. It's going to make our state so much more dangerous. What we did in Florida was like, we're going to do the exact opposite of what they're pushing. And you know, you're seeing in Illinois people getting out. It's a revolving jailhouse door. So of course they undermined the safety of these communities. And if you won't admit that, if you're going to refuse help from the federal government, from Trump, just because he's the president and you don't like him, you should be coming out every single day and saying, what resources are you dedicating? What policies are you changing? How are you shifting course and protecting your people?
Oh, Senator, thank you very much. Great to see you tonight.
In the first 6 months of the Trump administration, they focused on a bill. They called it the Big Beautiful Bill. Well, I'm here to tell you, it may be beautiful for some, the wealthy, the rich, the well-connected, but that bill that passed on a pure party line vote was a bill that would decimate our healthcare system. $700 billion will be cut over the next 10 years from Medicaid. Now, we know that when America gets a headache or America gets a cold, we in rural America get the flu. Now, we know that. We know that. So we expect that this will have a disproportionate effect on rural America.
I rise today to honor Willie Adams, former president of the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, who recently retired. For more than 40 years, Willie focused on supporting working families, workers' rights, and civil rights. Born in Kansas City, he first came to Tacoma, Washington as a longshore worker at the port in 1978 and worked his way up, including to Secretary-Treasurer of the Executive Board. And in 2018, he broke barriers as the first Black international president of the ILWU. He fought for increased wages and benefits for his longshore brothers and sisters, navigated the safety and supply challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. As the former mayor of Tacoma and now a member of Congress, I have witnessed Willie's leadership firsthand for working people everywhere. In Tacoma, he highlighted notable Black figures and entrepreneurs with celebrations of Black history, which led to his being a recipient of the City of Tacoma Destiny Award. I thank Willie for his contributions to the international labor movement, and I congratulate him on his well-earned retirement. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Hi, it's Representative Rick Larsen with this week's Weekly Recap with Rick. First is good news on the transportation and infrastructure front. The Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure passed a major bill to reform FEMA. Very clear message that there's nobody in Congress that wants to eliminate the Federal Emergency Management Agency, but we do recognize there's a need for bipartisan reforms. And so we told the administration with this bill, let's reform FEMA. We have a bipartisan way to do that. It's a very important bill. It passed out of committee, and we're going to try to get that on the floor, again, to send a clear message to states, to local governments, to individuals who are impacted by disasters, that Congress is still going to stand behind you, even if the Trump administration does not want to. Today, I'm standing outside of Cascade PBS, the public television station based here in Seattle, but serving the entire region, to talk with the leadership here at Cascade PBS about what the impacts of the cuts to the Corporation of Public Broadcasting could be over time here locally. Now, before the Trump cuts, the federal investment in public television amounted to, are you ready for this? About $1.60 per person per year. My sons grew up watching Arthur on PBS, funded by the Ready to Learn grants. I watched Masterpiece Mysteries as well. And like millions of Americans my age, I grew up on watching Monty Python's Flying Circus in the early days of PBS. Cuts at the Corporation for Public Broadcasting will result in less local programming. It will result in local radio stations and television stations closing all over the country. NPR and PBS create good content for all of us to enjoy, and we need to continue to support public television stations and public radio stations around the country. Well, that's this week's Weekly Recap with Rick outside of Cascade PBS here in Seattle, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.
When Democrats like Tim Walz rail against common sense law and order policies, they make it abundantly clear that they stand with criminals. Since day one, President Trump has been restoring safety and security to America with his anti-crime pro-law enforcement actions. Thanks to him, crime in Washington, D.C. is down to historic lows. As of yesterday, there have been over 2,000 arrests made and over 200 illegal guns seized in D.C. since he began this effort. President Trump is showing that it is possible to make America safe again if leaders have the will to do it. But Democrats across America refuse to acknowledge safer streets as a win for the American people. Instead, failed leaders like my state's governor, tough to call him that, rail against President Trump and the Republican Party in an attempt to defend their own dangerous soft-on-crime policies. These soft-on-crime policies don't just defy common sense. They put real lives at risk. The whole world witnessed this when over the weekend a video was released of a 23-year-old woman boarding a train in Charlotte, North Carolina. Moments later, she was dead, stabbed in the throat by a random man sitting behind her who had been arrested and released more than a dozen times prior. Woke judges, DAs, and politicians run and govern on a platform that protects criminals while leaving innocent civilians to bear the consequences. It doesn't have to be this way. President Trump has made it clear that law and order works. Now is the time for the shameless so-called leaders of blue cities and states to take a page out of President Trump's playbook. With that, I turn it over to our great leader, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor a true American hero, John Eakin of Catawba, Virginia, who will celebrate his 101st birthday on October 2nd. At the age of 19, John was drafted into the U.S. Army and served with the 34th Infantry Division, 168th Regiment, Company C. As a rifleman, he fought in some of the fiercest campaigns in Italy, including the final victory of the 34th Division. His valor earned him the Bronze Star Medal, and he received commendations from President Truman and General Omar Bradley. John's story is one of both sacrifice and survival. He endured dangerous scouting patrols, near encounters with snipers, and even narrowly avoided sinking at sea. After the war, he returned home with the rank of Staff Sergeant, where he farmed, built homes, and contributed to his community near Roanoke, Virginia. At 101 years young, he remains active in church and family life and an enduring example of faith, resilience, and service. On behalf of Virginia's 6th District and a grateful nation, I ask my colleagues to join me in celebrating John Eakin on his 101st birthday and in honoring his extraordinary life.
Well, for all those Republicans who say, oh, no health care costs, I want to introduce them to 3 doctor practices in Augusta County, which is in the Shenandoah Valley. They are closing their offices. You know what? They're being honest. They're saying close to $1 trillion cuts in Medicaid make it financially unfeasible for them to provide health care in this part of rural Virginia, whether it's doctor offices in Augusta, whether it's the hospital in Franklin City, where Bon Secours, the hospital group, wouldn't even have the courage to be transparent with their community. These cuts are coming. Health care is going to decrease, and it's all owed to Donald Trump and that god-awful big ugly bill. Step up, stand up, let's keep speaking out.
Mr. Speaker, this week, thousands of Kansans across our state will travel to the Big First District to partake in the annual tradition of the Kansas State Fair. I had the privilege to travel to Hutchinson this weekend for the fair. My wife and kids, Audrey and the kids, will be there tomorrow, and there's truly nothing like it. Typically, Congress is not in session during the first week of the fair, and I'm able to spend a few more days there with my fellow Kansans. While I'm saddened I couldn't stay longer this year, I want to take a moment on the House floor to recognize the significance of this tradition and the people who make it possible. The Kansas State Fair is one of the crown jewels of our state. For more than a century, families have made the trip to Hutchinson every September to celebrate agriculture, spend time together, and showcase the very best of our state. It is a place where urban and rural Kansans alike come together, where grandparents bring their grandchildren to see livestock shows, enjoy funnel cakes and candy apples, ride the Ferris wheel, and come together to honor agriculture as the backbone of our economy and our culture. The State Fair is truly a reflection of who we are as Kansans. In Kansas, agriculture is more than occupation, it is a calling that is the heartbeat of the Big First District. The fair celebrates that and honors the men and women who devote their lives to feeding, fueling, and clothing the world. From livestock shows to crop displays, the fair is a reminder of the faith, work ethic, and service of our communities. It is also a place where we invest in the next generation by highlighting the accomplishments of FFA and 4-H students who carry our agriculture tradition forward and emerge as future leaders of agriculture in our great state. On Saturday, I had the privilege of announcing the annual legislative showmanship competition alongside Mary McCurry, the chairwoman of the Kansas Fairgrounds Foundation Board. This event is unlike anything else in the country. It gives lawmakers the opportunity to learn directly from Kansas FFA and 4-H students about how to show livestock and, more importantly, about the commitment and dedication it takes to care for those animals. These young people are the future leaders of agriculture, and I was inspired by their passion and knowledge. I would also like to acknowledge Mary Kane with Kansas FFA and Ann Sankey with the Kansas State Fair Foundation Board for putting on a great event again this year. Congratulations again for this year's winners, and thank you for everyone who made the event possible. I also had the opportunity to hear from our state's farmers, ranchers, and agriculture producers, and our industry leaders on Saturday morning. We reflected on how Congress delivered big wins for Kansas agriculture this summer through the Working Families Tax Cuts, and we have more work to do. Kansas farmers and ranchers still need a fiscally conservative 5-year farm bill that addresses the needs of today, not just those of 2018. My House Agriculture Committee colleagues and I are working hard to deliver Farm Bill 2.0 to further support the men and women who show up every single day with the determination to feed, fuel, and clothe the world. Mr. Speaker, the Kansas State Fair is about more than rides, exhibits, and shows. It's about honoring the Kansas families and traditions that make agriculture strong and investing in the next generation who will maintain leadership tomorrow. Kansans are proud of this tradition, and I'm proud to represent Hutchinson in the Big First District, home of the Kansas State Fair, here in the House of Representatives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and with that, I yield back.
I was raised in abject rural poverty by a single mother, and we had food stamps when it was actually a stamp that you put on a card when you went to the grocery store. I had subsidized school lunches, government cheese, the whole thing. And I volunteered to be on the subcommittee for 2 Congresses in a row, and if I get reelected, I'm going to be on this subcommittee for 3 Congresses in a row because these programs have merit. And this is one of the things that we can actually unite together with. Like, I don't know if the hell is going to freeze over, but I actually agree with Mr. McGovern on a lot of these things. And I agree with my Democrat colleagues, like, there should be chips for EBT cards so they can't get skimmed. You know what I mean? And these programs should be as widely available as possible to the people that are in need, not just widely available. And we're talking about having illegal aliens on these programs. SNAP is not a global program. It's a program paid for by American citizens for American citizens, and I think that we can agree on that. And I think that's wonderful. But there's room for improvement. And the error rates, the initial idea was to charge every state 25% for error rates, and I strenuously objected to that, and we got it focused in a tiered system to focus on the individual states' error rates. And the purpose of that is not to remove people from the programs. The purpose of that is to encourage responsible bureaucracy, and that can be done. And people are starting to feel the heat, and they're focusing on this. So check this out. The state of Wisconsin spends $38.52 per month to administer this program. Now, Ohio, on the other hand, spends $97 per month per person to administer these programs. So that's twice as much. So, Ms. Bivens, can you explain to me the difference? Why would it cost $97 in the state of Ohio to administer these programs when it costs $38 in the state of Wisconsin?
Thank you, sir. I would say for several reasons. In order to, as you know, because you're familiar with Ohio, and I can talk about Franklin County, we're a county of 1.3 million people.
Sure.
We have about 183,000 folks that are receiving SNAP.
Yeah.
It requires a staff person to be trained to administer, to do all the things in order to ensure that that resident has what they need regarding their EBT card. In addition to what I will say is, and I'm not familiar with the cost of living in your state, so I apologize.
All right.
Cost of living across the country has increased.
Okay, so Ms. Bivens, the cost of living has absolutely nothing to do with the administration of a program. So hold on a sec now. Let's go. We're going to go back to Wisconsin. Mr. Chairman, I request unanimous consent to enter this little bit of paperwork I got in the record.
Without objection.
All right, so check this out. Here's the state of Wisconsin. And we are one of the most efficient states in the entire country. They're spending $4.4 million to issue EBT cards, $1.8 million for quality control, $200,000 for management evaluation, $4.5 million for fraud control. We can agree, those are all great things. Now check this out. They're spending $7.3 million. This is under the leadership of Tony Evers, or actually his chief of staff in an auto pen. They're spending $7.3 million for automated data processing development. If it's automatic, why is it still costing $7.3 million? They're spending $42 million for automated data processing operations. If it's automated, why is the state of Wisconsin spending $42 million for an automated process? The purpose of automating things is to make them much more efficient and less expensive. $1.3 million for fair hearings. I get that. Now check this one out. The state of Wisconsin, under Tony Evers, chief of staff in the auto pen, is spending $43.2 million for SNAP employment and training programs. So SNAP employment and training programs are part of SNAP. And they're hiding this under administrative costs. Now extrapolate that across the entire nation. We're talking about hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars that are being misallocated. And I was the hungry child when I went to sleep. And I don't want it, and neither do my Democrat colleagues. We don't want a single child to go to bed hungry in the United States of America. But when we're spending $11.122378364, we're spending over $11 billion for administrative costs. That's what we need to nip in the bud, so that money goes to the hungry child. And that's what we're trying to get at. There's no viciousness here. We want every single person who needs food assistance in this country to receive it. And that's why we are so adamant about getting rid of stuff like this. That's why we want the state of Ohio to spend $38 a month administering this program, vice $97, and my time has expired. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Now joined by Congressman Brad Schneider of Illinois' 10th District. Congressman, thank you for your time. As you know, the White House is framing Operation Midway Blitz as a law and order initiative. They warn this crackdown is ramping up. What do you think Chicagoans should prepare for this week?
I wish we knew exactly. The administration has done a lot of social media and talking on TV, but they haven't talked to Governor Pritzker or any of the other local authorities in Chicago, haven't reached out to the congressional delegation. So we're not exactly sure what their plans are. We know their plans aren't making our community safer or making us feel more secure. It is clearly an intention to terrorize our communities. And it's frustrating because if they wanted to help, if they wanted to make our neighborhood safer, they should work with our police, they should work with our mayors and village presidents, and we would welcome that opportunity to reduce gun violence, to make everyone feel more safe and secure in their homes and in their communities.
I totally hear what you're saying, but doesn't the phone go both ways? Do you blame Pritzker at all for not picking up the phone, calling the president and say, hey, tell me what to prepare for here. Tell me what to tell my people.
Not at all. This is we have made it clear to the administration. This administration has been in office since January. They've made no effort to engage with people who they don't see as not just their allies, but sycophants giving a yes to everything this administration says. I wish that Tom Homan was working to coordinate with our local authorities rather than co-opt them. I wish we were trying to make our neighborhoods safer rather than terrify them.
You know, we just saw DHS raid that Hyundai plant in Georgia, detain some, 500 people, almost 300 South Korean nationals who are working on car batteries inside. What's your message to Chicago businesses or plants who have people who are working for them illegally right now?
Yeah, it's just another example of the chaos that the Trump administration is creating for our economy. We're seeing it with tariffs. We're seeing it with uncertainty. The Hyundai had made an announcement they were going to invest billions of dollars in the American economy, hire American workers. They were trying to build this plant. We have businesses in Illinois, across Illinois, that are trying to make investments. And because of tariffs in my district, just my district, there's an example of a company that was going to make $100 million investment, local company, family owned, $100 million investment in expanding their operations. And because of President Trump's tariffs, they didn't postpone that decision. They canceled that decision. That's a loss of investment, a loss of jobs.
You're obviously, against this whole initiative, the federal takeover of Chicago. I'm just curious, what have you done legislatively to combat this, or historically to protect illegal migrants in your state before Illinois was even in Trump's crosshairs?
Yeah, since I've come to Congress, we need to fix our immigration system, and that's both fixing our laws and making sure our borders are secure. There's no question about that, and we should be doing it in a bipartisan way, working with the administration. That's what I've been doing since I came to Congress. I have the privilege of chairing the new Democrat coalition. 115 after tonight's election will be 116 moderate Democrats who are working to get things done for the American people. Last week, we introduced our immigration framework, where we talk about addressing the needs of our communities. We need to bring workers into this country who want to help grow our economy and make us strong. We need to make sure that our borders are safe and secure, that we know who's coming in, and we're keeping out those who want to do us harm. That's something that legislatively we can do together, but it's going to require investments and it's going to require cooperation with the states. And that's what the administration should be doing. That's what we're calling for. And I hope we can get the ear of the president on this.
And DHS says local law enforcement here should help identify undocumented immigrants accused of crimes. Should Chicago PD cooperate, or, what are you telling them, or stand against federal involvement?
No, this is a matter of our local police officials, our local authorities should all be doing everything we can to identify criminals, those who have committed crimes, catch them before they actually have the chance to commit those crimes, and keep those people off our streets. There's no question. And that's what I'm saying. If the administration wanted to help, they'd be working to cooperate with our local police departments rather than co-opt the departments.
Congressman Brad Schneider, thank you for your time and for being here early on a Tuesday morning. Appreciate it, sir.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
You too. I know you're busy.
Mr. Speaker, students at the University of Massachusetts Amherst recently joined together to address the terrible problem of food insecurity on their campus. After witnessing and some even experiencing difficulty affording nutritious food, these remarkable students worked with Chancellor Reyes and his team, the Amherst Survival Center, and the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts to establish the UMass Amherst Campus Pantry. Last Friday, I was proud to stand with them to officially open the pantry, which is a welcoming space that will provide anyone in the UMass community with a little extra help when they need it. The shelves are stocked with nutritious food, including food grown locally by the incredible farmers in Western Massachusetts. Mr. Speaker, times are tough, food costs are high, and people are struggling. No community and no college campus in our country are immune from food insecurity. I am so proud of the students at UMass Amherst and the administration for working toward a food-secure campus, and I encourage students across the country to work with their colleges and universities to address campus food insecurity and finally end hunger now. I yield back.
Democrats have not been honest in talking about the changes that was within the big, beautiful bill in regards to Medicaid and requiring work requirements for able-bodied, healthy adults. And so that's why we requested the Congressional Budget Office, that's the official scorekeepers of Congress, to look into it and tell us exactly who will not be receiving those Medicaid benefits based on our changes. And what they found was 48% of the people that would lose their Medicaid are able-bodied, healthy adults with no kids who simply choose not to work or to volunteer 20 hours a week. And 11% of the people are on the program because they're illegal immigrants who should not have been on the program, and 25%, according to the CBO, were fraudsters and people that did not qualify, but for some reason the Democrats allowed them to be on the system. And so when you look at it from that perspective, the Democrats clearly are more favoring illegal immigrants and fraudsters and folks who simply will not comply with the work requirements over lowering premiums for all of them, which CBO said that our changes will in fact lower their health care premiums of people who are on the program.